Hello everybody, welcome back to America TV. Back again with me, Fifi, and I want to welcome all of our audience and members joining us online today. Hi guys! So for those of you guys who are joining for the first time, America is the USMC American Center here in Jakarta, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. And yes, we're temporarily moved to a solid digital platform, but don't worry, you can still enjoy us from the comfort of your own home. And today we're going to discuss about we're going to have last session, the introductions to IELTS. So before we begin the event, I'd like to break the ice with a little game. So I already have the question for today's event. And the question for today is, how many days does it take to get the result of paper-based IELTS? I repeat the question one more time. How many days does it take to get a result of paper-based of IELTS? So you guys can answer the question by commenting at our live of each platform of our social media. So we're streaming from Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, our YouTube channel, and our website at www.atamerica.or.id. And also for those of you guys who are we're gonna have a question for the Q&A session. Also, you can comment at the comment box for each platform. And for those of you guys who are joining from Zoom, you guys can also drop your question for the Q&A session at the chat box section below. Okay, and I think that's it for me. And don't forget to take a selfie and tag at America's Instagram account during the event. All right, I think we're going to have the event now. I'd like to pass it to Santika Salim, our lovely Education USA advisor in America.
Thank you, Fifi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Education USA event. And this time it's with IELTS, and this is the third session. Of course, as you know, we had the first two each Saturday. So last two Saturdays, we had the first and the second. So if you missed those two, you just came in for this one, the third one. I want to let you know that you can rewatch them in our YouTube channel, in At America's YouTube. And it's very easy to find, but if you cannot find it, of course, you can contact me. And I want to welcome everyone, whether you are watching this first time or first Education USA event that you ever attended, or you are a regular with us, right? So like what Fifi said, if you are watching us from other platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram Live, you have a question, don't hesitate to ask your question in the comment box in the social media, and our team will pass it to us. So today we will have the British Council team with us, so they will help you. They can help you answer all of your questions regarding IELTS, right? This is a very good chance, so I would love you to do that. And without further ado, I think I will give you a bit of introduction of Education USA if this is your first time, to let you know what we can do for you if you want to go to US to study. All right, and here we go. Okay, let's start the presentation, and here we are. So Education USA is a US department. We are, over 400 international student advising center in more than 170 countries. Our network promote U.S. higher education to students around the world. We give you accurate and comprehensive information. So if you need any thing to be kind of answered, you did your own research but you're still confused, Education USA is the right place if you're looking at United States universities. And this is what we can do for you. We like to put this into 5 steps, but you don't have to come to us from the very beginning, from the first step. You can just come to us, anywhere in the steps, okay? So the first step is researching your options. This is where you kind of like do your homework, your research on what kind of program that you want, what kind of program that is suitable for you and everything like that. The university that you are interested and whether or not this is the best fit for you. So regardless of the ranking, because there is no official ranking system in the United States, okay? And the second step is financing your studies. So whether you're looking for partial scholarship, fully funded scholarship, we will be happy to kind of like give you an information on, what kind of options that you have, you can try to apply. But we cannot help you to apply for the scholarship itself. So you have to do it yourself, but we are here guiding you from each of the steps, okay? And the third one is completing your application. This is our favorite and most highly demanded service. It's completing the university application itself. So you will need a lot of things that you will have to submit for the application. So letter of recommendation, essay, your transcript, your CV or resume, and then your TOEFL or IELTS, and then SAT, ACT, or if you are applying for the graduate, you will maybe need GRE or GMAT, all right? Depending on your program. But the idea here is Education USA advisors can give you an input on your essay, which is a very important document that you will give to the admission committee, and also your CV or resume. So we are here to give you, an input of, okay, maybe you can improve this and that. And the fourth one is actually applying for your student visa once you are already accepted. We have the step-by-step for you, but unfortunately for now, the Visa Council is still closed and you need to go to their official website to just, keep track on when they are opening and everything like that. And the last one is pre-departure orientation. This is one of our yearly events. We invite everyone who already got accepted to the university for that year. We invite them to, just to connect with the other students who are going in that year as well, in that semester. We invite alumni to let them know what kind of things that you need to prepare. Your first week in the United States could be shocking and everything like that. So it's just kind of like giving you a briefing, what you can expect if you go to the United States. That's 5 steps, but a lot of our advisee who are currently in the United States studying also keep in touch with us. If they need anything, they can contact us as well. All right, so these are the centers that I want you to know that we have. So we have 8 centers and 10 advisors in Indonesia alone. And the first one is the U.S. Embassy Jakarta. We have David and Iqbal as the advisors. And next one is at America. As you know, Vina and me are here for you guys. We are in Pacific Place Mall, but we are currently not open for public. So that's why we are doing all online and including the advising session, which I will tell you later on. And we have 2 in Surabaya, one in the U.S. Consulate General and one in Universitas Airlangga Unair. We have Hesky and Ambar respectively there. And we have one in Medan in U.S. Consulate. We have one in Malang in Universitas Muhammadiyah. We have Makassar and also Banda Aceh in Universitas Fajar and Universitas Islam Negeri UIN Araniri. So if you know anyone who is not in Jakarta, who is close to this centers, they want to study to U.S., you can refer them there. And don't worry, everything's free. So not only the one in America is free, but all Education Indonesia, Education USA Indonesia do things for our advisee for free. So you can just contact them and find it on our website that I will provide later. All right, so this is our contacts. Fina and my email is on the top left there that you can email us if you have any questions regarding your study plan or anything that you want to do to study to US. And we are doing the one-on-one advising via Zoom these days because we are going digital. The Zoom ID is there. You can take note on that, 276-124-396. You can come anytime between 1 until 9 p.m. To Zoom. But if you are shy, you can email us first. So we give you alternatives, like that. And if you come in for the first time to Zoom, we will try our best to get to know you first before, we go to maybe like the essay review and everything like that, okay? And the next slide is our center email. So like I said, you can also email us first. If you missed our personal email or you're not sure to find Fina or me, then you can use the center email for you. So jakarta.atamerica@educationusa.org. Okay. And these are our next event. Actually, today is the last event for this month from Education USA itself, but we will come back on October with TOEFL IBT. So we will have 3 sessions as well, just like this IELTS. So why we do this is because we want you to, find out if you are undecided whether you want to do IELTS or TOEFL. This is very good time for you to, follow the 3 sessions of IELTS and then later the TOEFL. And maybe you can, for the GRE and the other one later on too. So this is for you to explore and get to know before you actually take the real test, which one is the right one for you, okay? It will be on October 3rd, 10th, and 17th, same time like now, 2 until 4 p.m. And if you have been to our previous TOEFL IBT prep course, the 12 sessions one, we had the same facilitator, Ibu Hafilia. She is really good, so you're in good hands. And the next one is our monthly event, Building Strong CV or Resume Letter of Recommendation, 6:30 until 8 like usual, Thursday, October 8th. And this is for you guys, especially that, applying for the graduate schools, graduate program. You may want to make sure that your CV or resume is in US template because then, other countries' resume or CV could be different. Let's say for Indonesian, you can put in your picture, but for US, they don't want you to put your picture. That's just one of the main differences, okay? So attend this and watch the presentation on what you can do for your CV and resume. And next one is also our monthly event, Thursday, October 15, 6:30 until 8:30. You will realize this is 2 hours instead of 1.5 because this is a very, very detailed presentation on how you can write a very good statement of purpose or personal essay for US university application. A lot of our advices came to this specific event for more than one times because it's so helpful for them to guide them through writing their essay draft before they give it to Fina or me to read and give you an input on that. So attend this, and we also have more than these events. We have other events than what I just mentioned to you, but we just haven't have the e-posters. So stay tuned. You can check our event in educationusa.state.gov or visit our website, atamerica.org.id /educationusa. So this is our dedicated tab in EdAmerica website, but you can find all of the events from the EdAmerica website itself. All right, that's it from me. I hope you know now that you are not alone if you need anyone to help you to study to US. And I want to tell you that if you just joined, if you missed the first 2 IELTS session, you can contact me or you can go to our YouTube directly to watch. The first one is kind of like the overall computer-based test. Second one is on the on the writing. And today we will have the speaking. And this will be fun because we have been talking with the speaker and he really expects you guys to be very active and interact with him. So be ready to turn on your video and unmute just in case if you want to practice your speaking skills, which is, this is a very good chance for you. Like when else you can find them directly and talk to them directly as a practice, okay? So take this chance and stay stay updated on what the presentation is about. And without further ado, I will call our speaker today, Calm from British Council Indonesia. Hi, Calm.
Hi, Santika. Hi, nice to be here.
Hi. Nice. Thank you for having us, Calm.
No. I'm very happy. It's very sunny outside today, so I hope you've been enjoying the sun so far. And thank you very much for giving up your time to join us in this webinar this afternoon. I can see that we have about 50 participants on Zoom and maybe more people watching on the social media channels.
Yes, I'm sure. So without further ado, you can just start your session.
All right. Okay. So,
all right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Colm Downs, and I am the Director of English Education and Society for the British Council Indonesia. And I'm based here in Jakarta, and I'm living in Jakarta at the moment and working from home, like many of you who are maybe studying or working from home too. And over this next hour, I'm going to go through the IELTS speaking test with you and give you some opportunities to practice and to give you some tips to improve your score. I hope you have participated in the last 2 sessions, and as Santika said, if you missed those, you can go back and watch those. But today, really, we're going to be focusing on the IELTS speaking, which I know is a big challenge for students around the world. I think we often see students that perform very well in the reading and listening test, but in the productive skills in writing and speaking, often we find that candidates find that area a little bit more challenging. And really today, as we go through the test, I know that some of you may be familiar with it. Maybe you've done a test already and you've got an IELTS 5 or a 5.5 or a 6. But in order to get that offer from a university in America or the UK or wherever you want to go in the world, you might need a 6.5 or a 7. And so I'll be talking specifically about those bands and how to just nudge up your score. So in my talk, I'm going to share slides with you. And there's a few quizzes. So for the quiz questions, please put the answers in the chat and I can see if you are, how much you know about IELTS. And then later on in the session, I'm going to invite some of you to come and talk to me and maybe we'll practice together. So if you're at home in your pajamas, maybe you want to put a shirt on and get ready if you want to come on camera. All right, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Now, here we go. So, as I said, my name's Colm. It's an Irish name. If you're interested, my dad's Irish, but I grew up in London. So what are we going to do today? We're going to review the IELTS test format and the scores. We're going to practice some question types from the speaking section of the test, and we're going to discuss some useful tips and strategies for test takers. Just to get started, I'm going to start with a little quiz to see how much you already know. So I've got a few questions for you. Let me put them up. There's 4 questions, and I'm going to give you 1 minute to maybe comment in the chat box your answers to these questions. Do you think they are true or false? Okay, I'm going to have a look, see some messages coming in. So, quick answers from Ivan and Shrianto. You both got the same opinion there. You think the first question is false and the second 2 are true. Oh, but okay. Doing pretty well so far. All right, so what have you said? Okay, let's have a look at the answers. Oh, there's another question, sorry. Here's the last question. All the modules of the test must be completed on the same day. So you can add that. Is that true or false? All right, let's have a look. So there you go. And as you can see, we'll talk a little bit more about the IELTS test. There isn't actually you don't pass or fail the IELTS test. You are given a band score, which will indicate what is your proficiency in spoken English. So it's not a test that you either pass or fail like many tests, but you might need a minimum score to get that offer from your university. There are two types of IELTS tests. Yes, that's true. There is a general IELTS test and there is an academic version of the IELTS test. But for the spoken part, for the speaking part, it is the same. IELTS tests 4 key language skills. Yes, it's a comprehensive test, so it tests your speaking, reading, listening, and writing. The IELTS test score is valid for 5 years. No, this is false. It's only valid for 2 years. And all of the modules of the test must be completed on the same day is also false. So you might be doing 2 parts of the test on one day and other parts of the test on a different day. Still an intensive day. Okay, let's move on. Here we go. So let's have a little bit of a closer look at the test scores. As I said, there's no pass or fail with IELTS. You can get a score between 0 and 9, and 9 is the top band. We'll talk about bands in a moment. So 9 would be that you are considered a proficient speaker of English. So this is really what we call a proficiency test. It's going to test your English language proficiency. And as I said, it's not valid. It's only valid for 2 years. So if you did one 2 years ago, but you're applying to university now, you have to be careful because it might be out of date. Let's have a look at the bands in a little bit more detail here. So as you can see, it actually says for band 9, an expert user. And the description for that, we're going to talk a lot about the descriptors. So it says, has fully operational command of the language, appropriate, accurate, and fluent with complete understanding. Now, some people actually think that all native speakers are a band 9. That's not necessarily true. You could be a native speaker, but if you don't have a wide vocabulary in English, or if you don't speak fluently, if you hesitate a lot, you may well not get a band 9 score. In fact, I've seen a number of native speakers whose English is their first language. If they're not familiar with the test, they might only get a band 7 or a band 8. So it's very, very difficult to get a band 9. I've seen that on many occasions, but it is challenging. Most Indonesians, I think, who haven't maybe lived overseas or who haven't been to an international school, often we see that they are coming out at about an IELTS 5, sort of an intermediate level of English. So they kind of have functional spoken English, but it's not necessarily quite strong enough to get that IELTS 6 or IELTS 7. And often universities, especially good universities that are difficult to get into and competitive, they're looking really for candidates who have a sort of an IELTS 6 or an IELTS 7. I would, if you want to use different terminology, describe an IELTS 6 really as sort of upper intermediate and an IELTS 7 as advanced level of English. And we're going to go into the band descriptors in a little bit more detail. The last thing I would also say about these bands is your university that you're applying to, it may depend on the university itself or the particular department or course that you're applying to. They may have different minimum requirements. So for example, if you wanted to study law at Cambridge University, I think you might need a 7.5. But if you were going to study mathematics or engineering at another university, they might only require a 5.5. So you definitely need to check the minimum IELTS requirements from the university and the department and the course that you're interested in applying for. Okay, let's have a look at the test format. There's going to be another quiz in a moment, so pay attention because I'm going to test your memory. But before the quiz, here's a little flow chart where we can see the different elements of the IELTS test. You can see that there's one listening test that's 30 minutes long, and it's the same listening test for both versions of IELTS. But for the speaking test, as you can see here, it's about 11 to 14 minutes long. It's just you and the examiner. So there are two people in the room. So you enter the room and you sit down, and you're going to have a 11 to 14 minute conversation with that examiner. And the test is recorded by the examiner, and the recorder is on the table. There are three parts to the speaking test, which we're going to go into in a little bit more detail as we go through my presentation. So, quick recap. Again, in the chat box, put in your answers to these questions. You can reflect for a minute. I think I've answered them if you were listening to me carefully. How long is the speaking test? How many parts to the speaking test? Again, these are true, false questions. Vanya has quickly said that she thinks question number 1 is false. Shriyanto's given us answers for all 4. Okay, good. Okay, I'd like to see some interaction here. So, as I said, the listening test is 30 minutes long, but the speaking test is not. The speaking test is about 11 to 14 minutes. It's a conversation with the examiner. There are 3 parts to the speaking test. Oh, I've got another question popped on there, which you can consider. There are 3 parts to the speaking test. That is true. There are 3 parts. The first part of the speaking test is where you will be asked some questions about familiar topics. Like, do you work or do you study? About your hobbies. So it's a few simple questions to get the conversation started about what we would call familiar topics. The second part of the speaking test, which again we're going to go into in more detail, is what is called the long turn. Some people find this the hardest part of the speaking test because you have to talk by yourself without any interaction for up to 2 minutes, between 1 to 2 minutes. You're given 1 minute to prepare, and we're going to practice this later, but then you have to speak for 2 minutes. The third part of the speaking test, the final part of the speaking test, is more of a detailed discussion or an in-depth discussion with the examiner about a topic related most of the time to the topic in the second part of the test. So this is more of an opportunity really for you to demonstrate your wide range of vocabulary and the use of different grammatical structures, and go into a much more of an academic discussion. I would recommend. So I would recommend using more formal language. But again, we'll come back to that in a moment. You get 1 minute to prepare for the speaking part 2. Well, I didn't tell you that before, but I just told you that now. So yes, you get 1 minute preparation time. And at the end of the test, you can ask the examiner about your performance. No, you might be tempted to say, well, how did I do? You're looking for a little bit of insight from the examiner, maybe an indication that you've done well. Well, I'm afraid the examiners are very professional, and they will smile politely and wish you a nice day, but you will get no idea really from the examiner of your performance. You'll have to wait for your results to come through. You must speak in an American or a British accent to get a higher band score. That's not true at all. What I would say is that you should be consistent. So if you're using American vocabulary, there are some different words in American English than British English, then you should be consistent in that usage. But having an accent, any accent, you could have a French accent or an Italian accent, and it doesn't matter at all. You could even have an Indonesian accent. Having an accent is great, and it's part of your identity, and it has no impact on your score whatsoever. But intonation, if it's difficult to understand you, that could be a problem. So we'll come to that in a bit. Now we're getting on to something really, really important. What is the examiner listening for when you're speaking? What are the four, well, these are the four criteria that is used by the examiner when giving you your spoken English band score. And each of these four criteria are equally weighted. So about 25% is given to your pronunciation skills, 25% to your what we call fluency and coherence during the spoken exam, 25% to grammatical range and accuracy, and 25% to what we call lexical resource. Lexical resource is a fancy way of saying vocabulary. It's a, you know, how many words do you know, and do you know the right words to use? Before I show you the next slide, maybe just in the chat, I wonder, out of those four, what do you find most difficult? What do you think is your weakness? I'd just be interested to read what you think is your weakest area out of these four. And I'm going to give you some tips to improve. I just want to see. Nico says grammatical range and coherence. They're two different areas, Nico. But maybe those are the two that you find most difficult. Okay. Again, it's very important to be aware of the criteria that you're being assessed by. Because you can actively try to improve your spoken English skills in each of these four areas. Okay, now the next slide, it's very, very detailed. I might drop out of my PowerPoint and go to a PDF, but this is something that you can find yourself online. I found this about an hour ago. I'm gonna just highlight what it is, and then you can go and search for it. So this is what is called IELTS Speaking Band Descriptors, and this is a public version, so it's available to candidates, and this is really something that you should study very closely. And I know it's small. In a moment, I'll zoom in, okay? But this is very similar to what an examiner will have studied and will be using when deciding what band score to give you. So you can see that for fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy and pronunciation, there are what are called band descriptors linked to those 9 bands for each of these 4 categories. Okay, so let's just drop out of this for a moment and open this as a PDF. Okay, so I hope you'll still be able to see this. It says my screen sharing is paused. One second, I think I need to do something slightly differently here. Okay, now you can see it again. Right, so let's have a look, and let's have a look at fluency and coherence, okay, to begin with. So what does it say, let's say for band 7, fluency and coherence? Speaks at length without noticeable effort or loss of coherence. So fluency is like this ability to keep going, to keep speaking. It's not about accuracy here. It's not about whether you make mistakes or not. That's in a different category. This is really your ability to keep talking. Now, at band 7, it says that you may demonstrate language-related hesitation at times. So hesitation, maybe you can't remember the word, and so you pause for a bit, you're like, and you're thinking and you find the word. So that's a language-related hesitation. Whereas at a higher level, there would be almost no hesitation. Even at band 7, it says some repetition and or self-correction. So maybe you made a mistake and then you corrected yourself whilst you're talking. At band 7 here, it says uses a range of connectives and discourse markers. What does that mean? So we'll look at them later in my presentation, but a connective or a discourse marker is something like firstly, secondly, thirdly, or in addition, or on the other hand. These are words that connect your sentences, but also they are words that can be used to structure and organize what you say. And structuring and organizing your spoken response is really linked to this second part of the band, coherence. Yeah? If I said there are 3 reasons why I love living in Jakarta, because it's got fantastic food, it's an exciting place that to live. There are lots of places to go out and entertainment venues, and thirdly, I'm trying to think of a third reason why I love living in Jakarta. But you see, it's about organizing your content. At a band 6, it says you're willing to speak at length, but you may lose coherence at times. So this is a band 6. The examiner is starting to struggle to understand what you're saying. Maybe because you're repeating yourself a lot, you're correcting yourself a lot, or you're hesitating too much. So this is really the difference between a 6 and a 7 for fluency and coherence. Just a quick look at some of the others. Lexical resource, again, I said vocabulary. Okay, so let's look at a band 7 for lexical resource. Uses vocabulary resource flexibly to discuss a variety of topics. So you have the vocabulary to talk about almost anything. Whereas here, band 5, you can talk about familiar topics, and familiar and unfamiliar topics, but you have limited flexibility. You don't really have a big range of vocabulary or a lot of words. If you go down to a band 4, is able to talk about familiar topics, but can only convey basic meaning on unfamiliar topics, and makes frequent errors in word choice. So you can start to see the graduation between these bands. And I really want I think you should be focusing on and aiming for this band 7, because band 7 is often going to be the benchmark for getting into a good university. A 6 might be enough, but really you should be aiming for this band 7 area. It says also uses less common and idiomatic vocabulary, shows awareness of style and collocation, but still at band 7 there are some mistakes, some inappropriate choices, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Over on the other side, for grammatical range and accuracy, again at band 7, you need to demonstrate a range of complex structures. So you can't just use the present tense. At some point in your spoken response, you'll need to demonstrate that you can use other structures, tenses, like, for example, the present perfect. So different, maybe you're going to use the past tense, the future tense. For example, I might say, I wish I had studied at ITB in Bandung, because then I would have had, a better degree. That's maybe talking about the past. Pronunciation, as I mentioned earlier, accent is not a big issue, so don't worry about accent, but intonation is, and it's very important that the examiner can understand you. So you can see here at a band 8, is easy to understand throughout. And the accent has minimal effect on intelligibility. This is what we are concerned with as an examiner. It's about our ability to understand what you're saying. Okay, so I'm gonna come back out of that, back to my slides. Here we are. So I know I spent quite a bit of time kind of walking you through this document, but it really is a useful document to download and be familiar with, because this is what is used by examiners to give you your IELTS band score. So as you've had a look at these, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a short video of a candidate being assessed by an examiner. While you listen to this, I want you to think about those descriptors. And at the end, in the chat, what band score would you give this candidate? Would you give them a 9, a 6, a 4? Okay, so you can be the examiner for a moment.
Now, we've been talking about a well-known person who you like or admire, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider, first of all, being in the public eye. Famous people are watched by everybody. What are the advantages and disadvantages of that?
Okay, the advantages is that a lot of people watching you, so you become famous because, there is media watching you, and you can go ahead and pass the message to the media in a right way. The disadvantage is that you have to be diplomatically correct. At times, if there are certain things which are incorrect, still you have to go ahead and do that, which doesn't make sense, because a lot of political leaders, they are into corruption back in India, and at times, there are some things which are wrong, but they have to do it.
Why do they have to do it?
Because there's a lot of political pressure, and if they don't do it, the political party would not support them, and in the end, they have to resign.
Do you think the media plays a role in that? What is the media's approach to reporting what famous people do?
Well, media plays an important role. At times, media will actually show things which are not correct, or, if you see it, it looks like, he's wrong, but that's not the case. So, media plays a very important role. They portray in a wrong manner at times, and sometimes they do portray in a right manner.
Can anything be done about that, do you think?
Not really, because in today's world, what has happened is everything is communicated by media, television, news, internet. So you just have to go ahead and, probably call the media and do a meeting and answer questions to the public and give justification and reasons.
Very often the media reports on the most trivial things in important issues, but people are fascinated by those things. Why are people fascinated by it?
Because these days people like to listen to gossip and trivial things. They're not interested in the bigger part, what's happening. They have a simple life. They would like to live it their way. They are not bothered what is happening within the country. There are only few people you see are really interested in knowing about the country and,
Okay, I'm going to stop Kush because I think you've heard enough, although it goes on for another minute and a half. In the chat, what band would you give Kush? Lots of people are saying 7. Santika, you're an easy judge, yeah? Would you be kind? Sadwika says 8. Actually, if you look very closely at the screen, yes, Arvin, I can see it. It says band 8. So no points for observation. Well, extra points for good observation skills. But actually, yeah, this candidate was a band 8. Okay. So again, you could clearly hear that she had an accent. She's from India. She made a few mistakes, but overall her fluency was good. She answered the questions. She was able to have that kind of deeper conversation with the examiner. And I think the video is quite good because it gives you a sense of what it's like. I think, yeah, a lot of Indians are good at speaking English. That's true. But a lot of Indonesians are pretty good too. That was the example. These are some notes from the examiner in that case. And so you can see that on fluency and coherence, they're saying that Kush was, she was fluent. She gave detailed responses. This was in the 3rd part of the test. There are good examples of these linking words and markers. That's not the case. I'm fine with that. For lexical resource, the examiner has said wide range of vocabulary. Political pressure is a nice collocation. She said like politicians are into corruption. So the use of the word corruption. In today's world, offensive, money-making business. These are phrases and expressions that, when we are trained examiners, we can pick them up and we know that these are what we would call advanced vocabulary. She does make some mistakes though. I mean, this is, actually this is quite a common mistake all around the world. You can't say do a meeting. You would say, have a meeting. So she made some slight errors. These are slips. But still, if you make too many slips, it's going to bring your score down. Let's move on. Also, on other areas of the criteria, so on grammatical range and accuracy, the examiner has said that Kush used a wide range of structures. So here, what will happen in the future? What will happen is those fans will actually use the product. It's good use of the future tense. There were some errors, but again, these errors were rare. Okay, there were only occasional errors. Pronunciation. Again, you can see the examiner hasn't mentioned accent, but has made a positive comment around her use of what we call rhythm, stress, and intonation. So she says, for example, at times I do like that. And so she's stressing key words, which makes it easier for the interlocutor, we say, the listener, to understand her. I mean, I think it's worth going through that exercise with you because you need to be familiar with the 4 different criteria that are used to assess your English. Reflect on your own strengths and weaknesses, and perhaps if you're practicing with a friend and you have those band descriptors in front of you, you can take turns to be the examiner and give each other feedback on your performance. Let's move on. I've got a few more questions and then we're going to get into real practice with you. Okay, so again, it's a quick reminder. I have already covered these questions in my talk so far, but again, if you want in the chat, I'm going to give you 30 seconds with regular testing to make sure that you remember all of the key points from my talk. So in the chat, who's going to be first? Looking on the Zoom group chat at the moment, but we will expand it. How many parts does the IELTS speaking test consist of? Very good, Vanya. And Ibnu was second. Okay. Next question. What is the difference between each part? That's not easy to type in the chat box, but a reminder, First part is a brief discussion about familiar topics. The second part is called the long term. And the third part is really a discussion about a topic in more detail. Which part do you find most difficult? Well, we haven't said that yet. The first part, second part, or third part? Which part is the most difficult for you? Second part, yeah? Third part, second. I think the second part is really difficult. And which criteria? Oh, wow. Dieter, that was the best answer so far. You've answered all the questions. I'm going to give you extra points. I'll give you an IELTS 9. And again, Arvin, well done. Very nice, short summary answer. All right, let's move on. What can you do to improve your IELTS speaking score? Well, you can attend a webinar with America and the British Council to get some tips. But really what you can do is you've got to practice. Yes, Srianto, you've got to practice. You've got to time yourself with the long term. You've got to record yourself, maybe with your phone, or get a friend to film you. So it is, practice is really going to help you be familiar with the format of the test and give you confidence when you're in the room with the examiner. So I'm going to give you some more specific tips, and then I want you to use these tips in some real practice with me. I'm going to invite you to the Zoom to come talk to me in a moment. But let's have a look at some tips. So for this first part of the IELTS test, familiar topics, these are some of the areas that you may be asked about. My first tip is I want you to remember that this is an exam, it is a test, and every question is an opportunity for you to impress the examiner with your level of English. Every question is an opportunity for you to show off, demonstrate your range of grammatical structures and vocabulary. So short answers like yes and no are not going to impress the examiner. Remember, although it might feel like a real conversation, it is an exam, it's a test. Can you think of some impressive answers to common questions that have a good chance of coming up? Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not recommending that you memorize whole chunks, like large, pre-rehearsed, like 30-second answers, because that will seem unnatural. But I think you can think of some interesting vocabulary to some typical questions that are likely to come up. Rakma, I'm going to answer your question in a minute about the nerves. Again, as I said, don't memorize entire answers, but you can plan to use a few impressive phrases and expressions. Let's have a look at some examples. So if I was going to say, where do you live? In a normal conversation, if somebody asked me that, I would probably say, I live in Jakarta. But that's not very impressive. I haven't demonstrated very much vocabulary. If somebody asked me, what do I do in my free time? I might say, I go to the mall, I sometimes go to the cinema, nothing special. But again, it's not very impressive. It doesn't demonstrate a wide range of vocabulary. So maybe just reflect to yourself at the moment. If I asked you those questions in real life, what would you say? Here's a suggestion. Rather than these short responses, this is what I could say that would be a little bit longer. It's not a speech, but it's a little bit longer, a little bit more detailed. So I might say, I'm currently renting a small flat in Sudirman Park. I like it because it's got a decent sized swimming pool and it's pretty close to work. So you can see it's a little bit longer and a little bit more impressive than a short, I live in Jakarta. What about, what do you do in your free time? Here's what I could say. When I was younger, I used to play chess quite a lot. However, these days I haven't got so much free time. When I do, I enjoy reading classic Russian literature, and I swim about twice a week. If I had more free time, I'd spend more time studying Bahasa Indonesian, and I'd also like to take up the guitar. That's quite a bit longer, but there's a lot of impressive things, vocabulary elements and grammatical elements in that second answer that are not present in the first. So I'm using different tenses. When I was younger, I used to play chess. I'm structuring my answer. However, that's a linking phrase. I'm using some different expressions like take up the guitar, which means, it's a phrasal verb, which means to take up, means to start a new hobby. In truth, I don't read classic Russian literature. I actually probably lie on my sofa watching Netflix. But that doesn't matter. This is not a test of the truth. This is just a test of your English. I wonder if, maybe I'll keep going, but remember this, because when we come to active practice, I might ask you to answer the same questions. Let's have another look at a typical question from part 1. What plans do you have for the future? Vanya, no, you don't have to be honest, but if you're too creative with your answer, you could say actually whatever you like. The honesty in your answer is not being assessed. Quick answer to that. What plans do you have for the future? I want to study in the UK, or I want to study in America. Okay, good answer. It's accurate, but it's not very long, is it? And it's not going to demonstrate that wide range of vocabulary or different grammatical structures. Where are you from? Maybe I'm from Jakarta. Again, these are what you would say in real life, but in an exam are not going to impress the examiner. So how about something like this? I'm planning, or I'm hoping to do an MSc in biochemical engineering at Imperial College, and I've applied to a couple of different universities. Instead of where are you from? Well, I was born in Sumatra and I grew up, or I was brought up in a small village just outside Medan. However, I moved to Jakarta a couple of years ago to do a BA in English literature at Universitas Indonesia, and I'm still getting used to living here. I think you get the idea now. Shall we? I think we have time to practice. Maybe we can get to know some people. Would anybody like to volunteer to practice with me this first part? I'm going to maybe stop sharing my screen for a moment. Anybody have? Mohammed, you're saying yes, you'd be happy to talk to me? Well, maybe somebody can help me and I'll have a chat to Mohammed. Hi, Mohammed.
Hi, Colm.
Hi, do you want to put your video on as well? It's up to you.
No, actually.
Okay, just your voice, okay?
Yeah.
All right, where are you from?
I usually domicile in Jakarta, but I currently living with my parents in South Tangerang, near the Stan University, and near my residence is a big station. Yeah.
Okay, that was a good answer. It was maybe slightly too long for me. It still didn't feel quite natural, but certainly better than just I live in Jakarta, right?
Okay.
Good. So let's ask you a couple more questions and maybe get the audience to give their feedback. All right? Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. Tell me, what are you doing at the moment? Are you working or are you studying?
I don't want to sound like an idealist or like a solipsist, but I used to work. As a safe space manager in my high school community. But currently, I'm not in a public nor a private employment program. So yeah, I'm currently free today and basically just doing some research on my future job prospects. Yeah.
Okay. If you were going to self-assess yourself, Mohammed, against the four criteria, what do you think is your strongest, your strengths, and what are your weaknesses against those four criteria we discussed earlier?
I think my strongest criteria will be my lexicons, like my vocabulary banks, because like I read a lot of like literatures from like Tolstoy, like and until Edgar Allan Poe, but my weakest link is in my pronunciations because I have many problems regarding my erotics, like my R's. Sometimes I pronounce my R's as like here, like the I is not like pronounced, but sometimes mostly is pronounced. So yeah, it caused some confusion for my native speaker friends. Yeah, that's most of my friends' complaints.
Yeah, I think you're very self-aware. I think that your vocabulary, so your lexical resource and your grammatical range and accuracy are your strengths. So I would give you a higher band score for those two areas, but your fluency and cohesion and your pronunciation are a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
We're in agreement.
That's my assessment at the moment. So one of the tips that I can suggest to you to improve this is maybe practice, like get a text, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And practice reading that text. Now, before you read it, what you need to do is analyze it for what I would call chunks, okay? And between each chunk, that you will pause for breath, okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now, a chunk might be one word. It might be 5 words, okay? And I'll give you an example of this. Like if I say something without chunking, all right, so I could say, my name is Colum. Nice to meet you. Would you like a cup of tea? Right? That's chunking every word. It's completely unnatural, right? But if I said, my name is Colum. Nice to meet you. Would you like a cup of tea? Do you see, like, there are, would you like is a chunk. Would you like? Hi, Mohammed. Would you like a cup of tea? And you can do that with any text, is to think, where should I be giving a space? But it was, very impressive vocabulary and grammatical range. I would give you a 7 or an 8 for your responses so far, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
7. All right. Do you want one more question, or would somebody else like to come in and practice? Any other volunteers? In the chat, who wants to come and talk to me? Anybody else? Alvina. Okay. Hi, Alvina. Are you going to come on video or just your voice? Alvina. Hi, Alvina.
Hi, Tom. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Well, I've got the call to prayer in the background here, so I hope you can hear me clearly. Let's just have a chat. Oh, nice. I can see you too. Hi. Where are you from, Alvina?
Well, I'm from South Tangerang, but it's mostly near to Jakarta because we are border in city. Yeah, I live with my parents, and this is a nice residence because it's strategic place to station, to mall, and some marketplace.
Very good. I want to talk to you a little bit about your hobbies and interests. Okay. So, tell me, what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, it depends on my it depends on how much I have free time. But if I have short free time, I just listening music or reading novel or comic, and sometimes cooking. But if I had long free time, I would like to traveling to the beach and snorkeling.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about snorkeling and that interest. Where have you been snorkeling before?
Well, honestly, I'm not doing much, but maybe if I count, it's about less than 10 times. But I really enjoy the snorkeling. And well, if I don't wrong, as I remember, I doing snorkeling at Manado, Gorontalo, and then Java Island.
Very nice. I'm jealous. It sounds great. Let's just reflect a little bit on your spoken English, Alvina. Okay. So I asked Mohammed what he thought his strengths and weaknesses were with relation to the 4 criteria. So what do you think for yourself, thinking about the 4 criteria?
Maybe I think my strongest is how to describe in English. It's like intonation. I forgot the criteria of the.
I'll remind you of the 4 criteria. Okay. So the first one is fluency and cohesion. The second one is lexical resource. The third one is grammatical range and accuracy. And the fourth one is pronunciation.
I think my strongest is cohesion and pronunciation. But my weakness is lecture, because I think my vocabulary are poor about academic vocabulary.
Yeah, I think you're also quite self-aware. I would say that your pronunciation skills are very good, very strong. So I can hear you clearly, and I have no problems in understanding you. I think that your area, it's good, but it's not quite an IELTS 7. It's kind of a 5 or a 6 at the moment, is your lexical resource and grammatical range and accuracy. Because at the moment, I think we're still on part 1 of the IELTS test. These are familiar topics. So you have the vocabulary to talk about familiar topics, but even at the moment, there are some slight mistakes in your vocabulary and in the grammar. So for example, these are slips, but you said things like listening in music, not listening to music. And you talked about I doing snorkeling. Instead of, you don't really do snorkeling. Again, it's like doing a meeting. You go snorkeling instead of do snorkeling. So it's okay. I mean, these are slips. But this is a kind of an IELTS 5 or 6 for those areas. But I think your pronunciation and your fluency is about a 6.57. So at the moment, obviously this is not long enough really to give you the whole score, but I would say that your spoken English is about an IELTS 6 at the moment.
Thank you, Tom.
Tell me, Alvina, why are you interested in taking the IELTS test? What are your plans for the future?
Well, I have planned to take MSc in project management. And honestly, I have applied to Australian scholarship program. I've been waiting for the announcement, but I also looking the opportunity to study in USA. But I haven't decided which university. But for program, I would like to take a master in project management.
Okay, right. So now a little bit after I'm listening to you for a little bit longer, I'm beginning to reassess my initial impression. So now I'm putting you up. That was really good response. So now I'm thinking that your IELTS band score for spoken English is about a 7 or 7.5. Okay.
Thank you so much.
This is why the exam is 11 to 14 minutes long. You know, it has to be long enough really for us to have a really good conversation. So I'm constantly, as the examiner, thinking about those 4 bands. And as you impress me, you go up. And then if you make mistakes, you go back down again a little bit, you see? So I'm constantly thinking, oh, for this band, maybe it's a 7. And this band, maybe it's a 6. That's what's happening in my mind as we go, yeah? I wish you well with your plans, Alvina. Do you know what IELTS score you need?
It's about 6.5 or 7.
Yeah. Well, I think you're getting close to 6.57 in speaking, definitely. Okay.
Hopefully.
All right. Thanks very much. I'm going to go on to part 2, and then we're going to have some other people who can volunteer, if you like. Let me go back and share my screen. So here we are. We were at part 1, and if I can go on to part 2. So I said this is the long turn. This is really hard, isn't it? This is where you have to talk with no help, if you like, or no interaction with the examiner. But you get 1 minute to think about it, 1 minute to prepare. What is given to you to help you prepare is what is called a candidate task card. So it's on a piece of paper. I might have my piece of paper and I'll give you the card and I'll say, Alvina, for example, I would like you to describe something you own, which is very important to you. You should say where you got it from, how long you've had it, what you use it for, and explain why it is important to you. Now you get 1 minute to prepare. You also get a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can make some notes. As it says, you can make some notes to help you if you wish. And then you got to do that for 2 minutes. Now, do I have another volunteer? Can you remember that task? I'll keep the task up for a moment. Maybe take a photograph with your phone if you can, or a screenshot. If you can remember the task, describe something you own which is very important to you, where you got it, how long you've had it, and what you use it for. And if I can get another volunteer, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Let's stop sharing this. Anybody else? Arvin, are you ready? Can you remember the task? Can somebody type in the task in the chat? We can give Arvin the mic. Arvin, you can't. Can somebody help unmute Arvin for us? Bear with us, Arvin.
Okay, yeah. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Arvin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. How about you?
I'm good. Where are you from, Arvin?
I'm from Jakarta. I'm currently living in Kelapa Gading.
Are you on lockdown? PSBB?
Yeah, as you may be aware, our governor had just extended the PSBB period in Jakarta from 14th September until, I don't know, there is no uncertainty when it will be ended.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's nice to meet you, Arvin. I've got my phone here. There it is. I've got a stopwatch, okay? So in a minute, I'm going to say, please begin now. And I'm not going to stop you unless you get to 2 minutes, okay? But it's better if you stop yourself before 2 minutes, okay?
Right.
I don't want to stop you myself, really. So I hope that you'll be able to speak between 1 to 2 minutes, and I hope you can remember the task.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember?
Yeah.
All right.
So
when you're ready, you can start now, Arvin.
Oh wait, do I need to prepare it first? Prepare the note or?
Oh, do you want some time to prepare? I'll give you 1 minute if you like.
20 seconds.
Yeah. I'll let you think about it. Leah, oh, you want to? Okay, Leah, good. I've got you ready for the third part. Unless you also want to do part 2, Leah, we can do that as well.
Okay, I'm
ready.
ready.
All right, I've got my stopwatch.
All right.
All right. Can you start now?
Okay, there are so many important goods that I have in my life, but I'm really interested to describe this one particular item, in which it is a watch. The brand of this watch is Casio. I got it from my girlfriend. In my opinion, this is a very important good because it is the first present that I received from my girlfriend. I have had it for around 1 year and 2 months, if I'm not mistaken, because she gave it to me when I birthday last year, and I always use this watch when I go to work. Usually because I'm currently working as a lawyer, and I really need to take care about the times when I doing my assignment. For example, like when I want to calculate my time sheet, I need to calculate it carefully how many times that I spend to do a certain assignment. So it is really important for me to use this watch anytime when I go to hang out or work purposes. And without this watch, I don't know how to count the time and to aware about what time right now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great. How long do you think you spoke for?
I don't know. In the middle of my conversation, I lost my track, and maybe it was around 1 minute and 20 seconds, maybe.
Okay, you spoke for 1 minute, 40 seconds, okay?
But there are so many fillers during my conversation.
It feels weird, right? It feels a bit unnatural because I'm not speaking. And you have to fill the time, the space. It's hard, right? Yeah. This is why preparation, using that minute is really important to try to think about planning what you're going to say. You did very well to keep going. And I think that was impressive. Before I give you my feedback, maybe do you want to do some self-reflection? Again, think about that 4 criteria and tell me what you think are your strengths and weaknesses.
The weakest part of my speaking assessment would be lexicality and grammatical range. Yeah, I'm aware of it because sometimes I lost in my sentences, and when it happened, I don't know what to say, and I kept blabbering like anything that popped out in my mind.
Yeah, again, so it's good that you're very self-aware. I agree with your analysis. I think that your fluency and cohesion and your pronunciation are your strengths, okay? Because you are able to keep going. I mean, you spoke for 1 minute, 40 seconds. You filled the space, okay? You used fillers and techniques to keep talking, which was good. The problem is that when you're thinking and doing that, you make mistakes, some slips. And that is the slips in the vocabulary and the grammar, yeah? Because it's hard. You're doing it in a second language, right? It's really hard. I would never be able to do part 2 in Bahasa Indonesian.
Yeah.
Impossible for me, right? So it's highly impressive, and I know how challenging it is. But if I just point out, for example, some of your slips, I think you said things like, when you're using this watch to measure, you said how many times I spend, it would be how much time, not many. Yeah. Or another one, you said, when I birthday this year. Okay, so grammatically, it's like when I had my birthday. Yeah. But I mean, these are slips. What kind of score would you give yourself at the moment?
I think considering my previous performance, maybe around 6.5 until 7.
So you've done an IELTS test before, yeah?
Yeah.
And what did you get?
A prediction test.
A prediction, and they predicted 6.5 or 7?
Actually, it was fluctuated between 7.5 until 6.5 until 7.5. Sometimes I got 6.5, sometimes 7.
Right. Well, I think hopefully I'm going to come on to some useful tips in a minute to help keep that up to 7.5. I think at the moment, if you had a good day, you get a 7.5. If you had a bad day, you might get a 6.5.
Yeah, it also depends on the topics because there are so many strange topics that I'm not aware of.
All right. Well, thanks very much for volunteering, Arvin. I'm going to move on and give some tips now. And then maybe,
can I have one question?
Yeah, sure.
As you may be aware, like I said before, our government had imposed PSBB, and my target universities requires me to submit applications before November 2020, and there are so many IELTS provider tests that delay their test because of this policy, in which that I couldn't take the IELTS test. In that case, my target universities also allow me to submit IELTS indicator text, if you know. But unfortunately, it is not available in Indonesia. The problem is I have already sent an email to Cambridge English IELTS organization, and they said that I need to talk with British Council or IDP to solve this problem, because only those organizations can provide IELTS indicator tests. Could you please solve this problem?
I can give you some feedback on that, okay? And I know that this is a challenge being faced by many people in Indonesia that want to take the IELTS test at the moment. So ourselves at the British Council, up until now, we have decided not to restart our IELTS exams, okay? So this is partly because of the priority for the health and safety of our own staff and also our potential test takers. Now, other providers, IDP and IALF, in Jakarta and in other cities, at different times they have made different decisions. I think sometimes they have been open and sometimes they have been closed. An IELTS indicator was an offer that was only offered for a short period of time in Indonesia when none of the providers were providing IELTS. So when IDP or IALF and the British Council were all not offering IELTS, then IELTS indicator was an alternative. However, when some of the providers are offering IELTS, I think my understanding is that IELTS indicator in that situation is then not available. Yeah. So basically, if one of the providers is operating and it is possible for you to take an IELTS test, then I think that is one of the options open to you. But I really sympathize and share your sort of frustration.
Yeah.
Our team is equally very keen to restart exams as soon as we can, but we have to be very, very careful because of the sort of the pandemic. So I'm afraid I can't give you a guarantee of when we will restart, but we hope to start with the correct safety protocol as soon as we can, okay?
Yeah, if possible, please discuss with the other providers like IDP and ILF to open the IELTS indicator, because most universities do not allow us to delay or defer our application without submitting that IELTS test.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So what I recommend is in the chat, my colleague Aria will write an email address from our team, and you can contact our IELTS and exams team, and you can share this kind of issue with them, and I think that they will be able to help give you some further advice and follow up on your point, okay?
Sure, thank you very much.
All right, thanks and good luck. I hope you get it.
All right. Thanks.
Now, let's have a tip. we're going to go back to my slides. So we were here, and we just had an example, a very good example, about talking about his watch from his girlfriend. Nice present. Now I want to give you a tip. During the long term, tip number one is make sure that you fully answer the question. So try to make sure you fully answer the question. You should talk about all 3 prompt points. To get a higher mark, you've got to demonstrate to the examiner that you can keep going. You need to be able to talk for more than a minute. If you fully answer the question, but only in 20 seconds, you're not going to get an IELTS 6 or 7 because you're not demonstrating your ability to keep going. Secondly, this is one of my favorite recommendations or tips. It's a technique called, it has various names. One is called listing. This technique for numbering is to structure your answer using the numbering or listing technique. And let me demonstrate what that is. So here, if you look at the same prompt card, where you got it from your girlfriend. You know, that's a short answer. How long you've had it, 3 months, 6 months, it's another short answer. But the last 2 prompts here, what you use it for or why it's important to you, you could have multiple answers for these 2 prompt points. So what you use it for, let's think about that. My watch. So I use my watch in 3 different ways. Maybe first of all, I use it to keep track of time regularly. Now maybe I have a smartwatch. So the second way in which I use my watch is to check if I have any emails. And maybe it's a really good smartwatch, and it can also I can take it when I work out to measure how far I've been running. So that's the third way in which I use my watch. My point is, if you get a prompt on the card which you could answer with multiple reasons, try to structure your answer. Let me give you an example. I want you to practice this in a minute. Let's say, taking the same prompt, describe something you own which is very important to you. Explain why it is important to you. So I could say, my Honda Vario motorbike is important to me. It's important to me as I travel to work on it every day. But that's very short. I'm not going to be speaking for almost 2 minutes. So what about if I said, a couple of months ago, I finally decided to get a motorbike and I bought a Honda Vario. My motorbike is really important to me for a number of reasons. Now, this first sentence is introducing a sequence. It's introducing my list. Okay, so you can see this is very carefully structured. My motorbike is really important to me for a number of reasons, and now I'm going to give you the reasons. First of all, it's important for practical reasons, as I use it nearly every day to get to work, unless it's raining really hard. Secondly, it gives me a sense of freedom and independence to explore Jakarta during the weekend when I'm free. And another reason why my bike is important to me is because. So I'm reusing the key words from the prompt, but I've structured my answer, and I'm going to be able to talk independently for longer if I do this. So I'm looking for another volunteer now, maybe Leah or somebody else who is willing to come and talk to me and use, hopefully, that technique. Let's see. Okay. Anybody would like to come in and practice with the same prompt? Leah, I know you wanted to practice part. All right, Leah. Can Leah come on the line?
Hello.
Hi, Leah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you at the moment?
I'm currently in my room in Jakarta, working from home, studying from home as well as I'm preparing for my application for a PhD in the USA.
Great. You want to do a PhD in America. What do you want to study?
Well, after I spoke to Santika, she made me rethink of my strategy again. I used to, before I wanted to apply for Yale University because they had the program that I wanted to in climate change communication. But then after Santika kind of encouraged me to search for another options, I found one more in a university, Stanford, but I know it's both of them are really prestigious, but well, I still have time to prepare for it, and this English test is also one of the requirements that I have to do. So at least I'm giving it a try. So.
And have you got an offer yet, or is it still early days?
It's still early days. I've just started. I have worked on it for like 2 weeks, maybe. So now I'm preparing for my proposal first. So when I'm sure that, I know what I want in terms of my research, then I am planning to send an email to some of the professors that I want them to be my advisor.
Great. Okay. It's an interesting discussion. We're gonna practice in a minute. I guess one more question I've got. Tell me a little bit about your background then. What did you do a master's in, and where did you do your master's?
I did my master degree in the London School of Public Relations, Jakarta, maybe close to your apartment if the one that you said it's true, in corporate communication, but I have been very passionate about climate change. So when I did my master in that communication, my master thesis was about climate change communication. And since then, I've known several scientists and scholars from those two universities that I really, that I was, really admire and then inspire of. So when finally last month, I had this epiphany that I need to do a PhD after, a lot of people, colleagues are trying to urge me to continue my study. Then I finally agreed, and that's what I'm now pursuing. Yeah, maybe the lockdown has an influence on that, but I'm already making a decision right now.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I would first of all say that I used to live in Sudirman Park, so that's true. It was true. So I was very close to LSPR. And I think that the area of, climate change and communications is incredibly important at the moment. And will be an area that if it's something you're going to follow up with a PhD, I think will be, maybe there will be a lot of universities and professors that will be willing to support you in developing that area. Indonesia needs more journalists and good communicators around the climate issue.
Yes. It's a niche area. So that's the only thing that makes me hopeful that I can get into those universities with my unique position and then my background working for the government and now in academia. So yeah.
Okay.
But I still have a lot of work to do.
Now we can talk, and this is good, and I'll give you some feedback in a minute on your English, but the hardest part for many people is part 2, because that's when you've got to talk for 2 minutes. So can you still remember the prompt card? We use the same prompt.
Hold on. I think I took a screenshot. No. All right, there you go. All right.
You got it, right? So I'll give you 20 seconds to think about it, and then I'm going to ask you to begin, okay? But what I really want you to do is, you remember the technique I just mentioned. So try to use that technique, the listing, the numbering, okay, to structure your answer in your flow. There are a number of reasons or a number of ways in which I use this object or why it's important to me. Yeah. So this is really what I'm looking for. All right. So 20 seconds to think about it some more, and then I'll ask you to begin.
Okay.
All right, are you ready? So if you can begin now.
Hi. So I have a garden which I bought last year in the middle of nowhere back then in Bogor. That is really important for me. That garden represents my passion on keeping the nature alive, and then the thing that I want to pursue on environment sustainability. So why did I buy that garden? Because first I need to keep I need a place to keep my bees. I have some bees. Their name is Trigona bees. It's native to Indonesia, and I need a place where I can safely keep them. And then the second one, the garden is important to me because then I can plant some endemic plants native to Bogor area, which is kind of an experiment for me to make a native forest in a very small area. And then I wanted to use that as a experiment for me to see which trees that are still easy to get around the area, and then also which trees are started to go almost extinct. And this is very important to me because I have to feel that I at least do something for the thing that I care about, which is about environmental issue and climate change. And then the second one is for my happiness as well, because every time I go there, spend like half a day there or maybe like just a few hours, it kind of recharges me in a way that, no Netflix movies or the other thing that I do in urban settings can do for me. Is that 2 minutes?
Thank you very much. How long do you think it was?
I'm not sure. Maybe 3 minutes.
It was 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Oh, that's great.
Now, what some examiners though will do is at 2 minutes, they will stop you.
Okay.
So it's better, I always advise people to practice this task and get used to what is between like 1 minute, 30 seconds and 2 minutes. So if you can stop yourself after about a minute and a half or a minute 45 seconds, that's better. Because it's always, the examiner doesn't really want to come in and say, thank you very much, that's enough. It's not a very nice thing to do. So what I'm very clearly saying to you is don't have this idea that you need to keep speaking until the examiner stops you. That's what some people believe. It's not true. So it says between 1 and 2 minutes. So, and you did stop yourself. You went slightly over, but it's okay. Second question, Leah. Do you think your English was better chatting to me before we did that exercise or during the exercise?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you think your spoken English was better when we were talking about your studies and the questions before the task or during the task?
I think when I know that I was being tested, and it kind of made me more self-aware, and then really, continuously assessing my own grammatical error, which is, I think that's my weakness. So I could say that, I wasn't really concise in my presentation. And in the middle of the presentation, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah, what I noticed, you can watch this recording back later, right? Because it's on At America. It's going to be on the YouTube channel, okay? So you can observe this. But in the questions when I was talking to you before, your responses were natural and you were quite relaxed. Maybe you weren't thinking about being assessed.
Yeah.
It was more like a natural conversation, and your spoken English was better. It was faster. It was more coherent, and you made less mistakes. And during the task itself, you were a little bit more nervous and you made a few more errors. Now, one of the reasons for that is that the task is not a natural task. It's very unnatural. When in life do we say to people, talk for 2 minutes. I'm not going to say anything, and I'm going to time you. You know, it's a stressful thing to do in a second language, which is why it's really important for anybody who's planning to take the IELTS test to practice with a stopwatch like this on their own and record it, or with somebody else, because it is an unnatural experience. It's not something that you ever do in real life. Yeah. Any other sort of reflections, Leah, on, before I tell you what I think your IELTS level of English is, what are your reflections or self-evaluation?
I still made some grammatical errors. And I usually notice that when I'm writing it, but when I talk, sometimes I just say it out loud and then I realize, oh, I did a mistake, and that kind of ruined my train of thought in that way. And then second one, I think I could be more cohesive and then concise in sharing some ideas, my ideas. And well, it was clearly that it wasn't really listed in my mind very clearly, so that's why I was kind of also thinking along the way. So I think that 1 minute preparation perhaps could help me a lot, and I need to use that. Okay. I was kind of like, I just like go show. That was
let's ask the audience. Let's see what score they're going to give you. Was anybody brave enough? Dandy's given you an 8.
That's good.
Oh, 9.5 from Ivan. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people on the line who will be very intimidated, Leah. Your English is excellent, okay? And for me, if I was your examiner, I think on a good day, you would easily get an 8. Okay. But on a bad day, if you're nervous, you might only get a 7 if you make a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
But obviously, we're having a very fluent conversation. It's very natural. You could easily get an 8. On a really good day, you never know, you might even get a 9. But I think you do have a couple of slips that would prevent that at the moment. One small but one error that is very common in Indonesia that I just want to pick you up on is when I talked about the listing technique, okay, and you said the second one, and you did it twice. You did it recently and during the talk. The second one, what's wrong with that? Do you know what's wrong with that?
No idea.
Like if I said, okay, I really like this phone for 2 reasons. First of all, because I can, WhatsApp my mum. And then the second one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That actually is a mistake because one, it doesn't work. Maybe in Bahasa Indonesian it translates. But when we say second one, I'm trying to, what do I mean by one? So instead of saying one, people should say, they can repeat themselves. They can say the second reason why this phone is important to me, or the second reason. Or just secondly. But a lot of the time people say second one, third one, and it doesn't work. It just is, it grammatically doesn't work, okay?
Okay.
So that's my tip. All right.
Thank you so much.
I'd love to hear, we're doing some work on climate at the British Council for the next 12 months. So maybe we can talk separately about your communication in that area, okay?
Looking forward to. Thank you, Cole.
Okay, I got to keep going. And I know that there's meant to be time for questions. I'm going to do 4 or 5 more minutes, okay, on the last section, and then I will stop. And I know there should be some time for questions, if that's okay. Let's share my screen again. So we're going to go on to part 3, and then I'm going to end my presentation. So these are, again, we talked about the importance of using connective devices or linkers. Again, consciously you can practice using these in structuring your answer so that you're more coherent. Again, there's a lot of if you just Google search kind of connective devices, there's all sorts of exercises to get you to use those correctly. In part 3, again, this is the longer discussion with the examiner on a topic related usually to the topic you spoke about in part 2. This is your final chance. Okay, so if you're on the edge of a 7, 7.5, you can either really get it at this point and, you know, really demonstrate that range of vocabulary and your grammatical structures, or you're going to perform badly and drop down, you know, back to a 6 or a 6.5, depending on how this goes. So this is really, by this point in the test, I think I've got a pretty good idea, but this is your last chance saloon, if you like. Here's some examples of how part 3 can relate to part 2. So for example, in part 2, you might be given a task to describe an object you like. And then part 3, we might go on to talk about possessions, materialism, consumerism, you know, about objects. You can see the relationship there. Another example, maybe in part 2, you're asked to describe a photograph. And you can see in part 3, we go on and we start talking about images, advertising, the role of films and television in influencing our decisions. Some tips. First of all, one tip is maybe comment on the question. It can give you a little bit more time to think about your response. Don't always use, oh, that's interesting. You can use that, but don't overuse it. But I think a kind of a general comment on the question, and maybe then relating that question to your own life, is this sort of another tip that I'll come to. Another tip, oh, that is the next tip, is relating the question to your own experience. You know? You can say, well, that's an interesting question, and it's very, you know, relevant to me, maybe because I'm getting married next month. So it's an issue that I'm thinking about a lot. Or maybe you ask me a question about something to do with finance, and I might say, well, that's a tough question because I'm not an economist myself. However, you know, in my view, this is what I think. Again, relating the question to your own experience will often give you more to talk about. And well, if you're talking about yourself, you're usually more in your comfort zone and feel a little bit more confident in your use of English. Another tip for part 3, and this is a great tip, is dividing up your answer. It's kind of linked to the listing and numbering technique that I mentioned previously. But if you divide up your answer, again, it's going to structure what you say and give you more to say. So here are ways in which you could introduce, again, that structure. So here are some common phrases and expressions. You know? Basically, you know, there are 3 ways that you could look at this problem. You know, one way is to imagine, etc., etc., etc. Another way is to think of it like this, and maybe a third way of looking at this problem is like this. I think there are several ways to solve this problem. Again, there are several ways. I'm going to give you maybe 2 or 3 and use that structuring, that sequencing. It depends on how you look at it. You know, I can look at it from different angles. If you were a parent, then you might have this opinion. But if you were a student, you might have another perspective. You don't always, you know, you can talk about your own perspectives, but also the perspectives from other people and other angles. Again, so you can see that these, you know, dividing up your answer is a very useful way of giving you more to talk about and to demonstrate your ability to be coherent in what you say. I think one of my final tips for part 3, this discussion, is remember it's a test. In real life, in spoken English, you would probably use less formal English. You'd probably use more informal kind of expressions and vocabulary, but often more informal phrases and expressions are more common. And because they're more common, they're probably at a slightly lower level of English. If you decide to use more formal language, or perhaps more academic language, this is less common because it's not used so often in everyday life. And because it's less common, it's often more advanced, a slightly higher level of English. Often the words are often also a little bit longer, so it's a little bit more sophisticated, if you like. So my recommendation is to think of this as a little bit like an academic discussion with, imagine you're there with your professor in your faculty talking about this from an academic point of view. So if you could use a little bit more formal English, academic English, I think that through doing that, you will naturally use a wider range of vocabulary and a wider range of grammatical structures in your response. I'm going to, I think, pause now. I realize I've gone over time, but it was good to practice with you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for the session. It's very interactive. It's very useful. I think everyone finds the same as I do. Actually, we have almost answered all of the questions asked on the chat box. I just have one general questions. It's about the speaking test on the computer delivered IELTS. So as we all know that the IELTS test is now being done in two different platforms in terms of the technology, which is the paper-based and the computer-delivered test. So do you find any differences on how the speaking test is organized on the computer-delivered IELTS test?
Well, Arya, I think that you're the man that maybe can answer that question more than me. I myself was a spoken English examiner for 10 years, but I am currently not an examiner, and I haven't done a spoken English test online myself, but I can imagine that it is very, very similar. But maybe Arya, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Colm. So as an explanation for that question, actually, there are no differences at all because for IELTS, we are still doing the speaking test using a face-to-face way. So again, there's no differences even if you're taking a paper-based IELTS or computer-delivered IELTS, you will experience the same speaking test, which is the face-to-face interview with a certified examiner. Okay, I think in terms of time, we are already running out. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I hope you find it useful. And over to Ed America.
All right. I'll just say, well, thank you very much for Ad America for the invitation for the British Council to deliver this session. And thank you very much to all of the participants, whether you're watching on social media or you're here in the Zoom. I really enjoyed talking to some of you who were brave enough to volunteer to practice with me. And I hope that you get the scores that you need and get to study in the countries and the places that you want to get to. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you so much, Colm and Mas Arya. I really thank British Council team, Indonesia, and in the first one we had Kishore from Philippines as well. It has been really great working with all of you. And I just want to add a bit on this IELTS series that we're doing. So this is actually the second or the third time that we work together. So last year we also have Colm and John for this sessions. The same, the speaking and then the writing was with John. So if you need more, because some of the participants are asking for your presentation, which we couldn't share with you, but you can rewatch this in YouTube. And if you need last year video recording, you can email me. I can share you the link if you need, the last year video recording. So yeah, for all of you who are watching in other platforms, you're wondering on how to, ask for the link or anything, or you want to contact me for your consultation to study to US, you can reach me out in jakarta.atamerica@educationusa.org. That's our email. And if you have, more questions, and especially for IELTS, you can go to their website, officially britishcouncilfoundation.id, and you can try to email them if you have specific questions as well. So yeah, I think that's, a wrap. And I really enjoyed this session because I can see what the, speaking test will look like, because Colin just showed me like, okay, this is, how the questions goes and everything. So I think that's all. If Mas Arya or Colm have anything to add more, if not, I'm going to pass it to our America team. Okay, yes, Colm.
One thing, that obviously, as we've said earlier, that practice is the best thing that you can do. Is like use any opportunity you can to like use your English as much as possible. But also there are lots of great resources online. I mean, there are British Council resources, there are resources from so many different organizations. So do your research, watch videos online, familiarize yourself with all parts of the test, whether it's speaking, listening, reading, or writing. Familiarization with the test is really key and can make a big difference, even between one band score. So the more you practice, the better you'll do. But yeah, good luck, everybody.
Yeah, I agree with Colm. So the key with standardized tests, not only in IELTS, but also others like TOEFL, GRE, and those that you think really, really hard, if you, practice more and familiarize yourself with the, the types of questions, the template, the tips and tricks, you will generally do much better. And then for the practice test, you can actually, for IELTS, you can find them on their website. So I try to find them and then share it with our advisees. So if you need that, you cannot find it yourself, you can also ask that from me. Basically, we will try our best to assist you with whatever you need that we can. Yeah.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, please.
Arya, can we say something about speak up or not yet?
Not yet, Colm. Unfortunately.
All
Maybe
right,
next time.
There may be in the future a service to help people practice their spoken English in terms of training. So look out for that, perhaps coming soon.
Wow, look forward to that, because that's the thing with the practice test. I think they only have 3 parts instead of 4, like the real test. So now you guys are mentioning that, I think that will be very, very helpful for the test takers. So yeah, and one last thing, because I receive this question kind of repeatedly today. A lot of people think IELTS is only, British English and not accepted in United States. So I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page that IELTS is widely accepted in United States. I think more than 3,000 universities, right, Mas Arya and Colm? So yeah, I think you will have to go to the university website and check it out. On the requirements, they usually put IELTS or TOEFL IBT, but if they only mention either one, you can totally email them and ask if you prefer the other one or you already have the other one that they don't mention. They're very helpful and they will answer your question if you give them the details that they can help you with. All right, I think that sums today's episode, and thank you again, British Council, and I look forward to have you guys again. Thank you for having America and Education USA. All right, I'm going to give it back to America team to close this event. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Santika. And also, I want to say thank you to our moderator and our speaker from British Council for sharing the great session today with America TV. So back again with me, guys. So earlier in the event, I have you guys a question for today's event. And the question is, how many days does it take to get the result of paper based on IELTS? So the answer is C, 13 days. And congratulations to Shifa Fauzia from Facebook for answering correctly. And thank you to everyone who has participated. Don't forget to tune in again next time to get a chance to get a shout out from us. And now you may be wondering, how can you develop an awesome idea for a place like this? Don't worry, easy, just go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id. Go to collaborate with us and go to create an event. All event proposals coming to us will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. And also don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for all of information about America. And one more thing, don't forget to follow our social media account. We're on IG, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you for joining today. See you next time. Bye.